Welcome back. I'm Kimberly Hunt, and we're here in Imperial Beach, one of the communities impacted by the sewage crisis. Just south of here is the Tijuana River sloughs. The pollution has been poisoning what was once a surfer's paradise, leaving the beach here nearly deserted, a sight especially devastating to those who know the role the sloughs played in surfing history.
Pioneers of big wave surfing came here before they started surfing big waves on the north shore of Hawaii.
For Serge Dedina, winters used to be spent at the sloughs.
It's a really remarkable submerged reef that when we get big swells from the winter, big northwest, long period swells, we get some pretty big surf here.
He served as mayor of Imperial Beach for 8 years. He's currently the executive director of Wild Coast, an international conservation group that he helped found 24 years ago. Growing up near the Tijuana River estuary, he's been connected to the ocean all his life. It's partly why he knows a lot about some of the legends of big wave surfing practiced near the sloughs.
Starting in the 1930s, a group of surfers and lifeguards really gathered together here in the winter, really isolated spot. They get the call from a guy named Alan Dempsey Holder, who was our first lifeguard, and they go down in a Jeep and with their redwood surfboards and balsa surfboards and paddle out.
You'd have people not only from Imperial Beach riding them, you would have people coming from other areas of California to practice on the big waves. That sort of was the start of the surf culture in Imperial Beach.
A culture you still see, surf henge, and the spirit of Imperial Beach statue.
So it's just a classic Southern California surfing area, but it's also an ecosystem, and it's also a really pristine area when it's not polluted.
The reality is pollution has been flowing on and off for over 90 years, according to newspaper archives collected by the IB Historical Society.
It wasn't until about 1931 there were articles talking about sewage from Tijuana polluting the water in the Tijuana River Valley.
But since 2017, the flow has only gotten worse.
Before, it seemed like authorities would try to curtail the problem and fix the problem. Maybe we'd have 2 weeks, 3 weeks at the most. But now it's months and months and months and just never-ending rounds of pollution.
Dedina hasn't been in the ocean water off IB in years. He told ABC 10 News back in 2021 it was making him sick.
The sewage has ruined my health. It's, my kids don't want to surf in IB anymore. I can't surf anymore in IB because I don't want to get sick. I've had ear infections, sinus surgery twice.
As the years go by, more sewage flows north.
427 million gallons of sewage has hit our water and our beaches just this year alone.
Early reports estimated there were as much as 230 million gallons of raw sewage that flowed north.
More closures.
Tomorrow marks 900 days of beach closures here at Imperial Beach.
And no solution to the decades-old problem.
At some point, people have stopped listening to us, and it gets very, very demoralizing. The worse it has gotten, the more that we feel abandoned. And then people in Imperial Beach and Coronado and South San Diego feel abandoned.
Dedina remains vocal. The U.S. must get motivated and take real action now.
In the last 5 years, the government of France rebuilt the Notre Dame, the most complicated construction project in the world. And in the last 5 years, Mexico and the United States haven't done anything at all to fix a broken down sewage system.
Locally, the county has given air purifiers to families living in the stench. Environmental groups are doing what they can to find solutions, including trash booms placed by Wild Coast to catch plastics, trash, and other solid debris that would otherwise flow into the Tijuana River and ocean. On the other side of the border, San Antonio de los Buenos is being completely rebuilt. Officials in Mexico have said it could be operational by the end of the year. On the federal level...
Hello, we're with CDC and County of San Diego conducting a community health survey.
The CDC is analyzing the data from surveys conducted on the impact of the crisis. Repairs and expansions are underway at the South Bay International Wastewater Treatment Plant, which won't be complete for at least 5 years. President Joe Biden has set aside $310 million to help upgrade the treatment plant in the president's proposed disaster relief funding. But that still needs to be approved by Congress. And if it's approved, funding is years off. All of that money, according to IB Mayor Paloma Aguirre.
No pun intended. It's a drop in the bucket. The plant itself is not going to solve the entire crisis, but we have the entire effluent and flow of the river itself that is not being treated. It's not undergoing any type of screening before it exits into the ocean. That is the main source of pollution to us right now.
Coming to you live from Washington, D.C.
Mayor Paloma Aguirre has been pushing for a federal state of emergency declaration. It was her sole purpose during her latest trip to Washington, D.C. in December. She called it her last-ditch effort to get help from the Biden administration before making her plea to the next administration. But Aguirre says a federal emergency is unlikely to happen unless the state of California declares one first. And despite Governor Newsom having seen the problem during his visit and media opportunity back in October, the Newsom administration says the crisis doesn't rise to the level of a disaster. That's according to a letter from the governor's Office of Emergency Services to all 18 mayors in the county.
What is the next action? Do we have to call on other countries for help? That's how desperate I feel.
Some of the most vulnerable in our community are lifting their little voices and calling for help.
Dear President Joe Biden.
And at San Diego Global Vision Academy.
Dear Joe Biden. Dear President Joe Biden.
Second graders wrote letters to the president after learning about how the contamination impacts their classmates and families.
We have a problem. Imperial Beach is very dirty.
It is making people sick. We cannot swim in this water.
People around Imperial Beach are getting really sick. The fish, too. We really need you and the President of Mexico to work together, so can you please do it for our community?
Out of the mouth of babes, pleas for help for a better future. Little voices joining a growing chorus. We can do better. We must do better. Thank you for joining.